Matsanova or Matsanova? Which one do you
Either way.
prefer? Or either?
Either.
Either. Okay. Ellie, anyway.
In light of today's positive economic news, is the UK's post-Brexit economy in rude health?
Ken Loach.
I think we're none the wiser. We've had political jargon and no substance. I think it's very interesting. There's clearly a subsidy being promised. No. Assurances are nothing without money on the table. If there's an assurance, they'll have some money attached. How strange, then, that we have no money to rescue social care for people who need help. We have no money. We have no money for the cash-strapped NHS. So the doctors have to work even harder for the same amount of money. Plainly, that won't happen. Plainly, the NHS is being driven towards privatisation. So that part of it is not in good health. But how about if we look at the economy from the other end up? How about the economy for the people who are on zero-hours contracts? How about the economy for people who work for agencies and they rung up one day and they said, yes, you've got work today, and they ring up the next day and say, sorry, no work today for you, and they can't plan their lives, they can't start a family, they can't buy a house, their lives are in chaos. What's the economy like for them? I'll tell you someone who it is good for. There's one CEO working for a big multinational company. He earns in 45 minutes what the average worker will earn in a year. The average worker will earn in a year. He earns in 45 minutes. Right. The economy is very good for him. It's not so good for everybody else.
Okay. No, in a second.
It's not all parties that are thinking it's fine and dandy. The Green Party are unequivocally opposed to this airport expansion, not just for the localised pollution, which is obviously devastating, the number of bronchial illnesses and the rest of it, but also the small elephant in the room, climate change. We've got to stop emissions now. We cannot just carry on living like the planet will last forever, right? What do the panel think about that? Climate change?
Ken Loach.
I think you're absolutely right. It is inconceivable that we shall meet our climate change targets if we build another runway. It's absolutely intolerable. Do people not realise that there will be no planet to leave to their great-grandchildren and the people that follow afterwards? I read one statistic, there are 100 harvests left in this country. Think about 100 harvests, and then there won't be any. We've got to act. And the idea that we're going to burn more fossil fuel is absolutely crazy. I just remind you, who said no ifs, no buts, no third runway? Who was it? Cameron. And who agreed with him? Theresa? No. Indeed she did. But we're used to her changing our mind, aren't we? So it's the most stupid decision we could imagine. There will be endless legal wrangles. It will go on and on. The poor people who are there are in a nightmare now for decades. And it is an absolutely stupid decision. It's unrealistic and it's disastrous. And I do wish that for once the Labour MPs would follow the wisdom of their leaders, Jeremy Corbyn and John McDonnell, and stick with what they say. They're good leaders. Follow what they say.
Lisa, then I'll come to you.
Ken Loach is against air travel, so are you going to cycle to New York next time you pick up your award? You're going to cycle to the and also, all the people that have got no money, are you going to give the large amount of money you've made from films of these people? No, you're talking from a position of strength to a position of weakness.
No, I'm not saying stop all air travel. I'm saying we can't build another runway. That's all. I'm saying don't increase it. I'm not saying stop it now. I'm saying don't increase it. This is about increasing it.
The one thing that works are the social support networks. So the protagonists get let down by the state machine over and over again. Who stands by them? The society, the community. And I think that's a wonderful thing that came out of that. That definitely came out.
So wrong.
That definitely came out of the thing.
All right,
I was meant as a compliment, Ken.
Is the country less compassionate? Yes, I believe it is. When we 60 years ago, after the post-war settlement was still in place, where what we believed in was the common good, and people worked together for the common good. And then there was a change, a political change, and it marked a social change as well. And the common good went out of the window, and it was about private greed, private projects, and the common good went out of the window. And it's crystallized in the way we treat the most vulnerable people. And it's crystallized in the way we tell people who are desperately sick that they won't get any financial support unless the state assesses them and tells them they are fit to work. And it's in the sanctions. We came across one man who took his pregnant wife to hospital. She was in premature labour. He missed his appointment to the job centre, and his money stopped. His money stopped. And that was one of hundreds and hundreds of stories we heard. And people live in fear. A man was ill. He fell down. He injured himself badly. They called the ambulance. He was afraid to get in because they were afraid they would keep him in hospital overnight and he'd miss his appointment to the job centre. People are living in fear. And it's absolutely an intolerable way to live. There's a conscious cruelty in the way the system is being imposed. Because the state knows what it's doing. The Tory government knows exactly what it's doing.
So why isn't Labour more popular?
Why isn't Labour more popular? It is because the Parliamentary Labour Party has done its best to undermine its leader. That's why it's more popular. And people won't vote for a divided party. It's quite clear. But if you look at the policies, the Labour Party would abolish assessments, which of course it should do. And we know that the government knows it's wrong, because if you appeal against the assessment, you will almost certainly win. So they know they're teasing people in a very cruel way. And what happens when you're sanctioned? Your life is forced into chaos, and people are going to food banks, and there were 1,100,000 food parcels given. 1,100,000 people would starve otherwise, and over 400,000 of those went to children. How can we live in a society in which hunger is used as a weapon? It's an absolutely intolerable situation.
All right,
But I see every day the compassion that the British public pour out in the giving to charity, the generosity and the kindness of people in this country. We must never forget that.
Can I say something on that?
Yes.
Because I think compassion's absolutely. Of course you'll find people very compassionate, but it's not reflected in our politics. That's the problem. It's not reflected in what they're doing.
Greg Clark.
And can I say also...
To make a couple of brief points. One is that we are, as a nation, extraordinarily generous in our giving to charities, and we should be proud of that. But I just wanted to make a point about what Ken was saying about the people that work in the system, the people that are employed in job centres and in the benefits system.
I didn't speak about them at all. I didn't speak about them. They're under incredible pressure,
they do,
and they have targets and they have expectations. I'm sorry, I didn't mention them.
They're in this in order to do the best for the people.
Yes,
they
I
serve.
didn't talk about the DWP staff.
For that.
Well, wait a minute, Greg. You may be dissimulating. What was the point you were making, Ken? And then let Greg answer.
I didn't mention that.
No, which was the point you were mentioning?
I mentioned the point about there is compassion, of course, with people, but it's not reflected in the government's actions. The DWP staff are under incredible pressure, and we know there are targets and expectations, and if people don't sanction the number of people they're meant to sanction, they go on a personal improvement plan. And we talked to hundreds of people who work at the DWP under your guidance and instructions, and they are told to sanction people. If they don't sanction them, then they're in trouble.
Ken Loach?
I hold no brief for Putin at all. He's running a country that's based on gangster capitalism, and clearly what he's done in Syria is a terrible crime, and they're bombers, and he needs to be excoriated for it. But I want to make three points. First of all, it's a very complex problem, that region, and Russia sees Syria as its only ally, and it sees the West making allies all the way round, and so feels isolated, and so it's not surprising that Russia wants to get involved. I'm not defending it, I'm saying that's the realpolitik of it. Secondly, there is no moral high ground. What we did in Iraq, we used chemical weapons to the kids in Fallujah, and there are now deformed babies being born because of what we and the US did. So we have no moral high ground to point the finger. And if we speak of war crimes, what went on in Gaza? There were war crimes across that region. And we can't be partial and just say this is the war crime. There were war crimes committed by the West and by the West's allies.
All right.
So we have no moral high ground.
Greg Clark.
And finally, can I say very quickly?
Well, you made 3 points.
Very quickly, the United Nations is the only body that can act. We have to live by the rule of law. We can't be vigilantes anymore. It has to be by the rule of law. And if the Security Council gets blocked, I suggest we should go to the General Assembly and build a coalition there, maybe of countries from the South, certainly not led by the US,
All right.
because they're not trusted.
We do.